No.
Do it.
Yeah. You should give your partner sexual access to you. Do not withhold sexual behavior from your partner. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his body, but the wife does. Do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a set time, to devote yourselves to prayer and then come together again. So, it's okay to withhold sex from your partner, but only in what situation? If you're going to use that time to pray. If you look at verse 6, this I say by way of concession, not command. Okay, what he means here is that he's saying it would be better for you not to get married at all, but it's permissible to get married. He's not forbidding you to be married. He's saying it's permissible, but the ideal is not to be married. And he goes on talking about this ideal. If you look at verse 7, I wish that all were as I myself am. Presumably Paul is single here, right? He's not married. They each has a particular gift from God, one having one kind and another a different kind. To the unmarried and the widows, I say that it is well for them to remain unmarried as I am. But if they are not practicing self-control, they should marry. For it is better to marry than to be aflame with passion. Right? Okay, so if you are unmarried or if you're a widow, if your partner has died, and you're just so extremely horny that you can't help yourself and you're having sex with other people, then it's okay to get married. But it would be better for you to control yourself and remain unmarried. He goes on to repeat the same. If you look at verse 25. Now concerning virgins, I have no command of the Lord, but I give my opinion as one who is the Lord's, as one by, dang it, what's wrong with me? But I give my opinion as one who by the Lord's mercy is trustworthy. Again, this is not a commandment, it's a recommendation. I think that, in view of the impending crisis, it is well for you to remain as you are. What's the impending crisis?
Or does it mean what's going on in Corinth, or does it mean more of the apocalypse?
Yeah, he's talking about the apocalypse here, right? In view of the fact that the world is about to come to an end, it is well for you to remain as you are. If you're a virgin, you should stay a virgin. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be free. Are you free from a wife? Do not seek a wife. All right? Because the end is coming near, if you're single, don't try to get married. Don't bother. Stay free. If you marry, if you marry, you do not sin. And if a virgin marries, she does not sin. So he's saying it's okay to get married, but it's better if you don't. Yet those who marry will experience distress in this life, and I would spare you that. I mean, brothers and sisters, the appointed time has grown short. Right? Just like Jesus in the Gospel of Mark, he thinks that the end is coming near. Paul, again, says the time is grown short. From now on, let even those who have wives be as though they had none, and those who mourn as those they were not mourning. Right? Pretend that you're single, because the end is right around the corner. If you look at verse 32, I want you to be free from anxieties. The unmarried man is anxious about the affairs of the Lord, how to please the Lord, but the married man is anxious about the affairs of the world, how to please his wife. What does that mean there in verse 32 and 33? Anxious for the Lord, anxious for his wife. What's he talking about?
If you're single, you have more time to be concerned about what's right in the eyes of God. But if you're married, then you're more worried about pleasing your wife and making sure your family's okay.
Right. It's pretty straightforward, right? Those people who are single have more time to devote to God. Those people who are married, they have to split their time between God and their family. Right? This is not unlike what other person said this in the New Testament. Who else talked about splitting your time between... Well, we just read that Jesus, right? What does Jesus say about your family? He suggests that you should hate your family. At one point, he literally says, you can't follow me unless you hate your mother and your father. It's the exact same sentiment. The apocalypse is coming around the corner. Don't invest time in your family. Investing time in your family is a waste of your time, in fact. Invest your time instead in the Lord or in Jesus or in, whatever the context is. Here, Paul is suggesting, because the end is right around the corner, don't bother to split your time between a family and God. He goes on to say the same thing about women and virgins. A married woman is anxious about the affairs of the world and how to please her husband, etc. You should avoid all that. Verse 36, again, he lets out what I'll call the horny clause. If anyone thinks that he is not behaving properly towards his fiancée, if his passions are strong, and so it has to be, let him marry as he wishes. It is no sin. Let them marry, right? If you're too horny to stand it, then go ahead and get married. It's better for you to get married than to be immoral. But if someone stands firm in his resolve, being under no necessity, but having his own desire under control, and has determined in his own mind to keep her as his fiancée, he will do well. It's better to remain single, right? Jesus says in Matthew, if you can be a eunuch for the kingdom of God, you should be a eunuch for a kingdom of God. What's a eunuch? Right, well, it's specifically a man who's been castrated, right? I don't think it's likely that the author of the Gospel of Matthew meant that literally. I think he meant it metaphorically, but the message is, you can focus your time on your sexual energies or on me. You should focus your energies on me. Paul's suggesting the exact same thing. You should be eunuchs, metaphorically speaking, if you can. How many R's are there in offer? Goes on to talk about another problem with food offered to idols. What's the problem? What's the issue?
Eating the food and wasting the resources.
It's not about wasting the resources.
It's not benefiting anyone.
That's really vague. Kate, did you put your hand up? Oh. Sorry. Right, that's part of the issue. Here's where it starts, right? If you buy meat, who are you buying meat from? They didn't have grocery stores. You would go to a butcher. Okay? Where does the butcher get his meat? In part, he's getting his meat from local temples. So let's say that you have some sort of illness and you want to go down to one of the local temples because there's a god who cures boils on your butt or something. So you take a chicken down, you want to be cured of that boil on your butt, and you sacrifice that chicken at the temple. After you've done the sacrifice, what do they do with the rest of the chicken? Well, the priest might eat it, or the priest might sell it to the butcher.